everybody's attitude right now. I think in the country and in the community, we are all saying we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And, kudos to Gary Hines and the Mighty, Mighty Sounds of Blackness for that artistic expression of the attitude of the community, not only here, but in the world. Thinking that people want change, and the movement of the moment is towards change. It's movement towards being woke, as they say, movement towards being accountable, movement towards empowerment, believing and reflecting our idea and our thought that our voices matter, our lives matter, and that we can create a future that serves our interests, that reflects our dignity, and that empowers our desire to be good neighbors, good residents, good parents in community. So that's what we're talking about now. And the focus, the locus for the conversation today is political office. On Mondays, we've been doing a series of regular meetings with the executive directors of the community neighborhood organizations like Jordan area community council, like Hawthorne, a neighborhood council like Central and like Powderhorn, Corcoran. And we want to continue that, but build it out, because we're moving towards the next iteration of political engagement with the city elections down the road or on the horizon. So today I'm going to be actually introducing you to some people who have already thrown their hats in the ring, who want to start the conversation going, to get you thinking about your interest on city council in the city of Minneapolis. We'll be doing this from now on, and we invite you to show up every Monday at 1:00 and bring your friends, and let's have what I call robust conversations about the political strategy opportunities to us, for serve us in the Minneapolis City Council and City Hall. But I want to begin today with a friend and neighbor of mine. I look out my front window and I can see his front window here in North Minneapolis, and that's F. Clayton Tyler. F. Clayton Tyler is an attorney, and he's also been an advocate for getting young people into golf. And here he's going to talk about the Minnesota Minority Junior Golf program. I think it's called Initiative. You can give me the right formal name, Clayton. Brother, how you doing?
It is. Thank you very much for allowing me to be on your program, Al. This has been a passion of mine for over 25 years. We've been taking kids ages 13 to 17 and not only teaching them about the game of golf, but allowing them to work out at private country clubs and earn up to $3,000 over the summer for part-time work. It's a caddy program. And the fun thing about this is that you don't need to know anything about golf to start out with. You could never have seen a golf course or a golf club, and you can start out in our program because we do everything. We train the kids. We have them take in-person training. We have them take a little bit of book training. We actually even pay you to train, which is sort of a unique situation. Where do you get paid to learn how to do something? Mm-hmm. We will ultimately send kids out to the private country clubs, and there we've got partnerships with the clubs where golf members will help mentor them. They'll train in their program also. And so what I'm trying to do, Al, is I'm trying to give kids the ages 13 to 17 an alternative to just sitting around during the summer. Make some money for part-time work, a lot of good money, and at the same time learn a little bit more about the game of golf. So
what a wonderful opportunity, and I think the historic connections that young people gain from working in the golf club environment. I mean, that's the old epitome of the Oh Boy Network, right? And that's where Oh Boy networking takes place for boys and girls, which is a beautiful thing. And so it's okay for kids to become used to and familiar with and to see firsthand how these career shaping relationships begin over the golf course. You're a caddy, you learn how to play, you talk the language, but pretty soon you discover other things in terms of approach, attitude, problem solving, conflict resolution, all those things come out of this experience that you get in a mentoring relationship. That's what I think. Does that sound right to you, Brother Clayton?
It absolutely is. Just to give you one example, my nephew started out at Minnetonka Country Club as a caddy, and now he owns his own business as they do roofing and siding and things like that. But he said that the lessons that he learned over there were invaluable. The people that he met were invaluable, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to introduce. It's definitely something that will be a little bit out of your comfort zone to start out with, but that's good for us. The other day, Jackie and I, my wife Jackie Cherry Holmes, and I were at a event, a META event, and this guy came up to me out of the clear blue and said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "Well, actually, I don't." And sorry about this phone. I thought I turned it off, but I didn't, obviously. So I'll turn it off now. He came up to us and said, "I just want you to know that I started out in your caddy program, and now I'm the head of my own corporation, and the lessons that I learned about, getting up early, being on time, listening and not talking, carrying, the bag and meeting people that are totally diverse from what I'm used to in my life, taught me a lot." And it was just so nice to have someone out of the clear blue come up to you and say that our program had something to do with him being a Black professional in town. So
that's amazing. We'll give the information again, Clayton Tyler. How do families connect with you so that they can see if this is a fit for their summer agenda, for their development agenda?
Okay, the easiest way to connect up is www.mmjga.org. And we have our initial training session on March 6th. Usually we have it over at the Urban League. But this time it's going to be virtual, and again on March 13th. And so I'm hoping that parents who hear this will get their children involved, because one of the good things about our program is the parents are an integral part of the program. We make sure that they're involved, because if they're involved, the kids are more involved, and it just makes for a better partnership. And so but that's how you get a hold of us. And they can also feel free to give me a call at 612-963-1378. That's my cell phone number, and they can feel free to give me a call, and I can talk to them about the benefits it has had for me, who started out as a caddy and learned to love the game of golf in addition to that.
And now you're a power broker. Listen,
I'm going to continue doing things in the community, and that's what
I'm not going to let you go without saying something about the next part of the program, which is I'm talking to people who've announced their intent to run for office, city council, and what better person to speak as an observer, participant, a mover, a shaker in that field. Your wife and partner is Jackie Cherry Holmes, the president of City Council, representing 5th Ward for a number of years, candidate for mayor, but still an active and vital force in North Side, actually in Minneapolis, Minnesota regional politics. What advice do you have? What observations can you share based on your own personal and family experience looking at how wards work?
What I can share is that anyone who decides to run for office has to be very passionate about what they want to do and why they want to do it. It's not, it's not easy to go out there. People are not going to all like you, but the bottom line is that if you go out there, you work hard, you get an organization, and you got to have a good organization. You can start out with your friends and move on through there, but you got to put yourself in a position to succeed. And you got to talk to as many people as you can, especially people like Al and my wife and other people who have been through the experience before, because they can tell you what you need to do and how to go about doing it. It's a very, very good job if you can become a city council member and do things. I think the one thing I will say, and this is one of the things that I just feel so blessed about in my life, is that when my wife was on the city council, she was there and she made a lot of good changes for our community and for our city. And if you have that as a vision, to be able to do things like that, that's just what it's all about. Each one, reach one, each one, teach one. I think that's what my philosophy is.
F. Clayton Tyler, brother, thank you so much. Good to see you, and keep up the good work, and best to you and your family. How's your daughter doing?
She's doing well. She's an unemployed actor in Chicago right now, but she's a dramaturg in Chicago. And you can go on emmatyler.com and read some of the plays that she goes over. And she's analyzing plays to see how to ensure that more Black people are included in plays as they go forward. So she's doing really good.
Amazing. Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
Take care. We'll see you. We'll see you later. I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. Thanks to F. Clayton Tyler. Some of us call him Clayton, some call him Fred. He's a good brother, a good guy, neighbor, and a friend here in North Minneapolis. So I'm going to continue and invite the people that I asked to show up today to come on and introduce themselves and their passion. And again, our intent today is to create an ongoing, sort of almost like an open mic situation where every Monday we reach out to people that are interested in serving on city council or other elected offices, and we begin to create a place where they can present vision, test their ideas, and get response or be responded to. So I'm going to begin just going over the list I have in front of me here with Commissioner Latricia Vital. She is elected already. She serves as an elected member of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. Commissioner, unmute yourself. I think you are now. Good afternoon. How you doing? And what I want you to do is to come on and introduce yourself and your candidacy, and tell people why you are making the invitation for them to support you in your desire to support and to create community by being on city council.
Good afternoon, Al. Thanks for having me. And of course, thank you for allowing for this platform for folks who are running or are currently elected to share their vision for our city. As you said, my name is Latricia Vital. I serve on the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board as the vice president and also as an at-large parks commissioner. I also work at North Point Health and Wellness Center here in North Minneapolis, where last week I celebrated 15 years of employment at North Point as the Director of Health Policy and Advocacy. And
congratulations.
Thank you so much. All of my work in the 17 years total that I've worked in North Minneapolis, I believe is the reason that I'm running for city council. On the forefront of my run, I want folks to know that it's time for us to come together as a city. I feel like a lot of folks are broken and need healing. 2020 was a really rough year for a lot of people, especially the people in North Minneapolis altogether. North Minneapolis suffers with some of the highest disparities in unemployment. And I think, adding COVID and the unrest, the murder of George Floyd to that, just allowed for more of those disparities to happen. So for me, this run is about representing our city, listening to the folks of Ward 4 and representing them at City Hall. Also, a lot of the challenges or a lot of the experience that Ward 4 residents I've had, and I feel like I can be that voice for the ward to change.
Describe the ward for me. If someone asks you, tell me what your community, your ward is all about. Describe the geography and who's in that ward, who are the voters, who doesn't vote that should be voting. How do you describe that community?
So I see Ward 4 as a very diverse community. I've I've started to have these one-on-one meetings since I announced my candidacy. And I think we have a group of folks that are all ages, young folks who are probably going to be running for voting for the first time. And, you know, my vision is to get out there and speak with them directly and encourage them to vote and talk to them about civic engagement. I think we have some longtime Northsiders. Northsiders are very passionate about the North Side. And I've had lots of conversation with NFLers, as they like to say, you know, lifetime Northsiders.
North Side for life, right?
Absolutely. So the ward is very diverse. I think the biggest thing I'm finding out is that, you know, the ward is just worried about regular old livability, you know, trash cleanup, snow removal. Of course, public safety is at the forefront, but there's a lot of conversations about just everyday living in ward 4. People love living in North Minneapolis, and they just want it to be safe and welcoming.
Great. Talk about your best experiences as an elected on the Minneapolis Park Board and how you intend to transfer both learnings and skills to the City Council if you're successful in your Ward 4 run.
So I think if anybody knows me, they know that I'm a talker and a listener. My best experiences have been talking to folks about parks, understanding how important parks are to every single individual in our community that wants to have a discussion. I get in trouble sometimes with my husband because folks walk up to me in my yard or at the grocery store and start talking about parks. And I say to him, you know, park board meetings are every other Wednesday. There's a time certain open time. Everyone can't talk to me at 5:30 on every other Wednesday. So here's their shot. Here's their one opportunity to tell Commissioner Vital about how passionate they are with parks, about their children, about accessibility, about amenities. And so that's been the greatest gift for me, is just hearing the vision of parks from everyone in the ward and just the city throughout. You know, as an at-large commissioner, I hear from folks all over the city. So it's been great to connect with folks and just talk about how our parks can be better or what folks love about our parks already.
Listen, I'm going to have you invite you to come back every Monday, anytime that your schedule permits. Here's the vision for this program going forward. I think the political arrangements, the opportunity, the needs are so great in the city, and that our people simply need to be unambiguously invited to know and use their power, the power they bring to the ballot box and the power they bring to adding their voice in what the city is going to be. I think that we have a duty, I have a duty as a communicator to encourage our people to believe that we have a right and a responsibility to author what the future will be, to craft it, to create it. And we do that in a way that is collective, that is shared, that is caring, and that reflects a vision of what the good life, the resiliency could and should be in our community. So I'm going to keep inviting you back, Commissioner, and asking you, and over the course of the next several, how many times we do this, I do want to get into the difficult questions of, not today, we start today, but the questions of safety in our community, the question of the impact of COVID-19 on families, and you know a lot about that by being at North Point, but also the impact of what I call the pandemic of 1619, or some of my native brothers might call it, and sisters might call it the pandemic of 1492. These are critical issues. All that has to do with the notion of reparations, right? And the practical things like home ownership, density, like wealth creation and business creation. So I'm saying this to ask you to think about it and to be prepared to come back to address those things, one at a time over the next, so many times, because I think that my job is to make sure we've got a totally, completely as informed as possible voter electorate so that we get the best representation that we have. Let me thank you again, Commissioner Vital. Let me go next to Brother Victor Martinez, who's running for Ward 5. Victor is a 17-year resident of North Minneapolis. He's a lead pastor, an entrepreneur, an author, father of 3, a devoted husband, and a community organizer. He is running because he says he's honest, fun-loving, and always available for advising or helping. And he loves Minneapolis, he says, especially the North Side. He wants to see our great city meet its potential for all of its residents. Brother Victor, good afternoon. How you doing, man? And you have to unmute your mic. There you go.
Oh man, just to show you technology, you know, it messes with everybody. But thank you for having me today.
Isn't it amazing?
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity to share. I really believe that the North Side has been asking for some pretty basic things for quite some time, and I'm more than excited to share about that today.
Well, go ahead. Tell the world, you know, what Victor Martinez sees and what is motivating Victor Martinez to throw his hat in the ring.
Absolutely. So I've been on the North Side 17 years, as you've said, and for the most part, I kind of vote for folks that I believe are going to do good for the community. But this past year, some things were said and done that began to affect my family, my church, folks that have businesses in the community. And I took October, November to talk to literally over 100 people, like you said. If you don't talk to the people, you're not going to know. And they've been telling me, Victor, you've been here 17 years. We've been talking about this for almost 50 years of safety and prosperity for the North Side. I've watched your show many times, and everybody keeps coming back to the same thing. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Why hasn't it happened? Why is every other part of the city of Minneapolis able to thrive and grow and get better except the North Side? And so I started figuring out that really the inability to curb crime in our community and the fact that we've had West Broadway not revitalized for a long time is our 2 of the biggest concern of the folks in Ward 5. And I have a plan to do that. Young people is key. We have the highest concentration of folks under the age of 18 probably in the state of Minnesota. We got 20,000 youth. That's 35% of our population. Just to think about that. I think a lot of the safety issues that we're dealing with in terms of the police are a reflection of the inequities in our community themselves. And so when you have a public school system that struggles to raise up all their kids, when you have lack of opportunities for young people, that's why I was so excited about Mr. Clayton, you know, sharing those opportunities. That's those little stepping stones that help our young people get ready for life. And so we need a lot more of that. And I believe that there needs to be more accountability with funds that are given to community organizations to do that work, and that haven't been doing that work very well.
And so give specifics yet of things that you think have not been done or should be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So number 1, West Broadway. Everybody's been wanting to fix West Broadway for a long time. And when I talk to folks that have been closer to the project of West Broadway, they all seem to know the same thing. Like they all seem to know the problems, which is about half the storefronts are closed, used for, locked up or not even just the blight, of it. And the city of Minneapolis is one of the biggest culprits of it. Like they're not taking care of the buildings very well. They're not keeping accountability. And so we have organizations that are supposed to be responsible for making sure these things get better. We have a business improvement district, which in other parts of the city and other parts of the country, they do very well to rehabbing their areas that they're responsible for. But for some reason on the North Side, there's the lack of leadership to bring the pieces together. We all know what needs to be done. It takes a lot of hard work and action. And I think I'm ready to do that.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We're calling this Monday series our leadership session. We started it off a month or 2 ago in partnership with Hawthorne Neighborhood Council and other neighborhood organizations to be a place where the members of the NRP organizations, neighborhood councils could gather and share successes to see each other and hear each other. And as we go forward, we're evolving or pivoting to not only do that and be that, but to, given the urgency of decision making facing our community, to be a place where people that want to talk about the city government, city hall, and be candidates can come and articulate their vision, raise their voices, and try to mobilize voters to be engaged. So I'm glad that the people who are here today, including Brother Victor Martinez, who's a candidate for Ward 5, are able to be here. My hope, Victor, is that you'll come back every Monday, because the idea is if we keep showing up, we begin to define, we begin to create. I used the word earlier. We can author, meaning write, a narrative in which our communities win. And we have not been as intentional as we need to be, but we can. So, Victor, with you in Ward 5, how will living in North Minneapolis be different? The 30-second answer.
Yeah. So when let's start with young people. We had about 15 teenagers this last year murdered, most of them in the north side, most of them kids of color, right? African Americans. That is unacceptable. We should not have a community where every month a teenager is killed in our community. That just doesn't work. It just it brings more trauma, brings more hurt to everybody. And number two, we have to provide a better looking community for them. If West Broadway, half these businesses closed and looking terrible, is what kids and families and people in this community think that's what North is for, guess what? You're going to have people from the outside coming to Broadway just to peddle drugs and do things that aren't supposed to be coming into our community.
Thank you for that comment. We'll keep watching your campaign. Let me.
I think, I don't know if it was me or you, it froze. Sorry, I can't hear you. Or I don't know if it's just me. Everybody can hear us. I think, I don't know if I'm the only one you guys are able to hear, but definitely an opportunity to be here out with you and sharing. I believe that the residents of the north side are more than hungry to hear specific things that they want to do. It's a 2-year term. And so we want to be a realist about what we could do in a year and a half of our time. And so I think that rehabbing Broadway and curbing violence through youth diversion is super important. I guess I'm the only main guy here in the show. Thank you guys. These two things are very important for our community, right? And it's not normal.
These up. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you. You're back now.
Turn the volume up here.
I was trying to cover a little bit there.
Great. So I was about to introduce Brother Tikan, and I have your notes actually in my computer, which shut down on me. So I'm going to have you come on, brother, and introduce yourself. You're running for 7th Ward. And my apologies, but this is a new experience for me in technology. It's amazing, and it's wonderful that we can recover and keep moving. I pulled my telephone out, and now I'm on my phone. So great to be here again. Brother Tikan.
Yes.
Say your name properly and fully.
Yes. My name is Teken Zea Aida. And Victor, gracias por todo que dijiste. ¿Oíste?
De nada,
Yes. So did you ask a question? I'm sorry. I was kind of jumping around there.
I think he's freezing.
Introduce yourself and why you're running for city council. What's your background?
So I'm, as you said, running in the 7th Ward, which is half of downtown, Loring Park, Elliott Park, Kenwood, Lake of the Isles, East Isles, Dean, and Bryn Mawr. So it's a huge ward, and I think very representative of the city of Minneapolis in terms of our ward houses the complete spectrum of our society, from, of course, the extremely well-off to those literally living in the cracks of public or what is left of old church-funded public housing, as well as Eon and Beacon Interfaith and whatnot. For 22, hi Diana, for 22 years, I owned and operated a model and talent agency where we created economic opportunities whilst celebrating diversity. And so to me, graduating after 22 years in the private sector at the head of my own company, graduating into public office, public service is a natural evolution for my spirit. And that's, kind of why I'm running is to continue that work of, like I said, creating economic opportunity and celebrating diversity.
Where are you from? What's your background?
So originally, I'm Colombian by birth. So I am descended of the Afro-Colombian race, the first people free in the New World. And I was adopted by a very traditional Minnesota family. My grandfather was the last in his family, born in Sweden. My other grandfather was the first in his family, born in a tenement in New York City, in Brooklyn. And so here I came, this Black Colombian, to Minnesota, where I grew up. I was raised here, went to public school here. I graduated from high school in 1994. 2 weeks after, came downtown, where I found freedom and a space to be my true self. And in 1996, with Nathan Youngerberg, I founded Vision Models or Vision Management Group.
Dinah, help me out here. I'm trying to navigate this through my telephone. Do you have any questions, or does anybody else on the call have questions for brother?
Taken.
I don't have any questions for my former policy fellow Tekken, but it is good to see you. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, sister.
And I am so glad
on your new appointment.
Brother Tekken.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, together, you know, we should be able to get this done. That's why I told Al, we need to do this. We need to bring everybody out, bring everybody together so we can see what's going on.
Well, you know, Diana, as you know from our time together, a year and some odd months as policy fellows in the Humphrey program, I'm very much dedicated to creating opportunities and to work to carve out space in this town to protect space for the next generation of Minnesota powerhouses. You know, what I know from 22 years in talent and model management is that, and fostering careers is that, you know, Minnesotans are, once they spread their wings, among the best that this country can produce. You know, it's a bit about our work ethic, our strong educational system. And I think the fact that this state for so long has invested in not just athletics and, you know, higher education, sciences and things like that, but also the arts. And so all of that has in years past created a very rich fabric, a very rich city that has produced not just Prince, not just myself, yourselves, but many, many other people across a diverse range of industries who actually also too are outside of the Twin Cities running stuff. You know, whether that be in New York, Los Angeles, Europe. I have many friends doing very incredible things. Many of them got their start at my company, and many I met through that experience of running a company. And also, too, I think it's important. I'm not sure how many current or former council members have come from the private sector who had to be, you know, the buck stopped with me, right? I had to be responsible for the economics, for the opportunities, for the education of going back to what Clayton Tyler was saying. You know, there were some people that, you know, we were pulling people from all walks of life. And some of those people we need to invest in, both monetarily, but mostly energy. You know, giving people an opportunity is not just throwing them out there, but giving them the tools, right, to be able to perform in their best capacity in whatever way that they are supposed to be performing.
I love that. And if I could just say education, right?
Education.
If you don't educate, like in the Latino community over here, during the 2006-07, houses were selling like hotcakes. So our community was gravely taken advantage of because they were like, hey, just come and buy these houses and on these arms. And when 2008 hit, almost half, or I will say half of the people that I knew that own houses, the Latino community, lost their homes. Like
exactly. And Victor,
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that's why it's important to have council members who have actually lived life, right? And who are seeing this public policy space from not any better than anybody else, but from a slightly wider angle. You know, education, public school education is paramount. I know that you and some of you follow my social media, and I've been talking about if we want to turn this around, it's time to invest in our children.
Yes.
And Victor, I know Latricia, who's a dear friend of mine, we talk about this all the time. I know that that's very much a part of her work, not just at the parks, but also at her place of employment, and the things that she does. We must start to invest in our children. In the last 24 years, I like I said, I moved downtown 2 weeks after graduating in 1994. So I've been around. And, in these years, we have lost so much of the infrastructure that was there to catch our children, to nurture them, and to also to expose them, right, to new opportunities.
Yes.
One thing I'm very excited about downtown is the emergence of the academic arts district that Minneapolis Public Schools is doing. And I just got off the phone today with my dear friend Lise Holton at MDT, Minnesota Dance Theater. And, I'm not elected yet, but I'm already kind of moving and shaking up and down Hennepin Avenue like I did for the last 24 years, right?
Gotta do it.
And keying in the people that I know from the arts community, theater, dance, as well as the visual arts. Actually, I ran an art gallery for some years, and, an inner city arts gallery, where we were challenging people's notions of what art is, similar like we did at Vision, where we challenged people's perspectives of what was an American beauty, especially here in Minnesota. So being able to, when we bounce back, and that bounce back has to be immediate, that we are able to immediately key the existing creative and business infrastructure into this in a new way that doesn't leave anyone behind. And Al, I know you probably want to start talking. I just want to say that I'm very cognizant that downtown is a part of the North Side. Very cognizant of that.
Absolutely. It belongs to us as well.
That's right.
I appreciate your comments. I want to bring in Alicia Gibson. You know what? And the main thing is that this is really a good introduction and presentation, Brother Tikan, because you brought up so much that has to be dealt with. And downtown is a critical space for the entire community.
Is the space.
And it has a history of problems with what I call, the establishment and people of color, Black people in particular, but in the future, we're going to get into that because we think that there are solutions that are dignified and that are appropriate, but we have to be aware, we have to name the problems and address them.
Within our reach.
Yeah. So let me bring in Alicia Gibson. Alicia, thank you for being here. She's running in Ward 10. She's lived in 4 of the Ward 10 neighborhoods, 1 year in South Uptown, when she first moved to Minneapolis in 2003, 5 years in Whittier, and a summer in the Echo neighborhood, and the last 4 or 5 years in the Wedge neighborhood. So she believes she knows what makes each neighborhood unique. And she says she's excited to serve this place that she loves. Alicia, thank you for being here. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me from Southside to be able to talk with all of you beautiful people. I'm so excited to be on this show, Al. I have watched it before because when I was serving as the president for our Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association, I knew that you were doing this program with people, compatriots who were working at the North Side. And I thought, I live in this bubble and it's really important for me to understand what is happening in other parts of the city. And even before I had any notion of running for a city council seat. And so to be sitting here now and having this conversation with you guys is really, wow, what are those moments where you're like, I did not see this coming.
Well, so glad that you're here. And I have to tell you, I'm glad that you have the presence of mind and the energy, the inspiration to bring your voice and your vision forward in service to the community you live in, your families and neighborhoods, but also the bigger vision. How do you integrate that, weave that into building a city that really works and works in today's environment? And I call that the environment that is conditioned by COVID-19 and other storied disparities, inequities, and the environment that's conditioned by the George Floyd murder and the world's call for a reckoning, for reparation, for restoration, for reconciliation. So let me just start there and have you talk about yourself a little more, and how you and why you've chosen to make this step.
Yeah, so Al, you referenced kind of these really big picture pandemics in the beginning of this show starting, and that when I went off to school at American University in Washington D.C., just coming from Oklahoma, but with the background of being raised by my Japanese American grandmother, who was Japanese, in a culture that really did not know how to accept difference. She didn't have a community, a Japanese community. My mother grew up. Very much had to cut off that part of who she is. I studied peace and conflict resolution. I studied colonialism because I knew that I could see the way that that pandemic that you referred to, 1492, is related to our current crises, even then. So this is something that I have been thinking about very deeply my whole life, and especially as becoming an adult. So my background is peace and conflict resolution. I went to South Africa to study the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, studied human rights, and thought I was going to be a human rights attorney. But it turns out that was a really overwhelming for me as a young person to be constantly, I would listen to asylum victims' stories, and it was really devastating because I didn't have really a way of processing the trauma of being a witness, in that way. And so I always knew I wanted to go to law school. So I went to law school and I kind of pivoted to studying environmental law. And also when I was there at the University of Colorado, ended up studying federal Indian law, which is a really interesting, crossroads of the international work that I had done, because it's really, you're talking about sovereign tribes with, human rights and the things that have happened here in this country that need to be addressed. And from then I thought, I'm not done learning. There's so much more that I still want to understand. And maybe the relationships that I want to have in the world are more in an education setting, more give and take than in a courtroom. So that's what brought me here to Minneapolis. I came here to be a graduate student in the PhD program at the University of Minnesota called Cultural Studies and Comparative Literature, and studied really these big systems of exploitation, racism, sexism, and economic exploitation, and taught that in the classroom. So when I ended up graduating, my husband, I met somebody, he got a job right out of training in Cincinnati, and we decided to go there because the market for academics was really collapsing. When we talk about defunding, a lot of things that have been defunded are education, especially in higher ed. And those positions don't really exist. So in a non-exploitative way. So I transitioned, I pivoted again, and had my children, devoted myself to being, with my small children, my really small kids, and started doing things where I could bring them with me. So that meant that I opened a bookstore and had my bookstore baby. Some people have a bookstore cat, and I had a bookstore baby with me. So I'm was a small business owner, and also at the time started a small business association, because everywhere I go, I see that how we should all be working together. We should be a team, and we can do more together than we can just in our individual pursuits. We had an opportunity to come back to Minneapolis, and so we took it because we missed being here. And from that time forward, I've been doing a lot of community organizing. So really got involved in my neighborhood association, ended up becoming president, and stepped down in order to run for the city council seat. But also took every opportunity that I could to do training in restorative justice, which is kind of, if there's a thread that runs through what I've done, that's the thread. So I would describe myself as somebody who is really a big picture person, but who is always looking for the practical details then of how you address, those big picture questions. And the reason why I'm running is that I think that this is so in Chinese, my kids are in Chinese immersion, and I've studied Japanese. That's one of my heritage languages. The character for crisis and the character for opportunity, right, are the same. And so this is a moment where we can no longer ignore all of these things that, you were mentioning that I've been studying. And so it's a crisis, but it's also an opportunity. And I know that I have some skills to help us move through crisis into opportunity. And that's what I want to do. You talk about reparations. I have some really specific ideas about how we can do some reparations that are very specific to this location and I think could pass judicial scrutiny. But in general, I'm all about processes that are going to empower community. That means decision making, not just the lowest common denominator of engagement, but really active listening and then action and processes that mean that community is always there with decision making power.
Alicia, describe Ward 10.
So Ward 10 is a really progressive place where people, I've been having conversations really intentionally now, but over for a very long time. People are really good-hearted. People really want to do right by history. People really want to be part of this movement that we're in this moment that we're in, and do right, and I really truly think that is something that connects everybody, whether you're, young person in Whittier, or you're more established and have raised a family and live in a place like East Harriet. And those are kind of stereotypes of who lives in those different neighborhoods. But everybody across the board really wants to participate in lifting up people and lifting up the marginalized people that have been left behind. So I feel really good about being a community member here and being a neighbor here. This is a ward that makes me feel really proud, and it's why we moved back to Minneapolis, and it's why we chose to live here. It's also a really creative place. We have a lot. I love that conversation that you guys were having earlier about downtown and Minneapolis in general, just being this place of amazing creativity and the arts. And it's not an art scene like New York City or Chicago with really established, art. Everybody here is an artist in a way, and it's a really interesting place where it's you can be real edgy, or you can be doing different kinds of things, and it's part of all the other things you're doing in life. And this ward in particular, we have MCAD, we have a lot of really interesting galleries that have historically been a place for art from the margins. Prince came from this ward. And I think that in our movement forward, what I would like to see is for us to really engage that creative class. As people say, not everybody who is in this creative class is an artist as such, but they're using that understanding the world through an art lens in a lot of different ways. And I think that we can really revitalize our spaces by relying on our creative class to help us re-envision for a new future.
This is not a question for right now, but I'll just throw it out for you to respond to at a future date. Some people feel that Ward 10, Ward 13, and Ward 12 influence an inordinate amount of power in the city government and also their counterparts in the school board, and at the expense of North Minneapolis in particular, and some would say, places like Phillips and even parts of downtown Cedar Riverside. But again, not a question for now. I'm throwing it out for you to think about. I want you to come back and talk about the who is in your ward and how you described, and I think you began doing that, their shared value, their shared vision. And I'm thinking that you're talking in ways that reflect alignment with emerging communities, but we'll come back to that. I want to go now, thank you first of all, and go now to Carmen Means. Carmen, thank you for being here, and you've announced your candidacy for Ward 9. And just a word or two of introduction, Carmen Means is let's see. Well, I've got my notes wrong here. I've got my notes mixed up. Carmen, you can present yourself and your work over at the Central Neighborhood. Carmen, how are you?
Absolutely. I'm doing well, Mr. McFarlane. How are you?
I'm doing great. So glad to see you. And I was excited to learn that you have thrown your hat in the ring. So let me have you take a minute to describe yourself and your reason, your vision for the community. What motivates you to make the decision you've taken to seek election to Ward 9?
Absolutely. First of all, shout out to everyone that is daring enough to run during this time. This is not a easy time to run, but nevertheless, it's a necessary time to run. I'm currently the executive director of Central Neighborhood as well as Bryant Neighborhood, right there in South Minneapolis. On the corner of where George Floyd was murdered at in May 25th, 2020. Prior to that, I have and still do have a pastoral background. I had a ministry in South Minneapolis, served for many, many years there. One as a youth pastor, and then secondly, planted my own church and became the senior pastor. Most of that is done online these days. And so I have different hats in which I show up in both worlds, though, regardless whether it's on the spiritual side or my everyday living side. I'm always involved in justice. One of the first times getting my feet wet was with that as an adult, rather, was Jamar Clark. And things before that too, but that was like one of the most recent places in which I was able to serve and show up for a community. And so now I decided to run during this time, because there was clearly, after the uprise, and I believe even May 25th, 2020, it just highlighted and unveiled something that we that serve the inner city have always known, that there is a systematic system that yet keeps us in places that we are at. And so now we can no longer deny that or hide that or even run from that. Not only do we know that, but now the world knows that as well. And who would have thought that South Minneapolis, will be the birthing place for the awareness and the awakeness of the world.
And so, particularly, what things have to happen in your neighborhood, in your ward, to move the community, the constituents, towards their better life experience? What restoration, what investment, what prioritizations need to be elevated, highlighted, and perhaps embraced? What are you bringing forward?
Yes, absolutely. Right now, what we see is a trillions dollar business called poverty. We may not look at it and want to state it as such, but that is exactly what it is. People make trillions.
I haven't heard that before. That's rich. I'm going to use that. $1 trillion business called poverty. That's good. I like it.
Yes, sir. People don't really, I don't know if we ever look at that, but a lot of businesses, nonprofits, now philanthropy work, all these words and all these different organizations that exist, even places of faith, let's be real about it. They have made livings and profited greatly off of poverty. We really have not created a system that is whole enough or well enough that have preventive measures. We have only been formed and programmed how to really make a living off of intervention. And so with that, what we see in South Minneapolis, 38th Street being one of the places which is actually a corridor as Broadway and Lake Street is, but yet and still one of the last places to be erected, one of the last places to be revitalized, and one of the first places in which Black folks really were able to buy homes. Redlining, there's a whole thing, Jim Crow of the North, that was built and that was written off of what happened in the Bryant neighborhood. And so right now what we see is capitalism that has really stretched its heads beyond, and now greed has really ran a lot of this. So a lot of the ills that we are facing, the economic disinvestment that we see our community being faced with. A lot of people come in for their real estate investors. And I'm not, and let me be clear, I'm not against wealth. I believe in generational wealth. I believe in generational legacy. That if you grew up poor, I'm originally from Chicago, you understand there was nothing sexy about eating government cheese, right? We just made it do what it do. However, what I am against anyone that will be a gatekeeper against others having these same opportunities in a very systematic way. And unfortunately, the system and white supremacy is so evil that it does not discriminate on who it would use, that it has even used some of our Black leaders as being poverty pimps in our communities. And so with that, we've seen this diversity happen in such a widespread that now the disinvestment as far as economic development, which as a result is why we have to have a constant conversation of justice, of safety. And then if we look at that now, in many cases, we have to choose between safety and justice, when really safety is justice and justice is safety. So when we really look at where poverty comes from, why it still exists in the land of the free and the home of the brave, the place that people are literally dying to get to, only to arrive and realize that we are still in disparities here. That is systematic. And one last thing, Mr. McFarlane, I know there's others that need to speak as well, that I've noticed. A 24 demand came out of South Minneapolis. Some community members got together and put these 24 demands. Most of you all are very much so aware about the streets being closed. And community members got together, and I was part of a meeting in which I heard some city representatives was able to tell us a program for each demand. Literally, there was a program. They were able to say, "Oh wow, we have a program for that. We have a program for that." And my mind began to roll. Wow, if the real investment and the dollars went where we said they were supposed to go, we may not have never experienced May 25th. George Floyd did not have to die. That was a result of mismanagement. It was the result of broken promises. It's the result of keeping the poor poor and the rich richer. It was the result and the breakdown of so many layers of systematic racism that affects Black, brown, indigenous, and others. And when it really boils down to it, green is the ultimate color that really separates us. And so when you think about that and you think about decisions being made on your behalf, how do you make major decisions and policies on behalf of the people without the voice of the people? What we did realize now, though, I think everyone can be able to attest to, our answer is in the community. Now, I don't have all the answers. I don't. But what I do find, we have the answers. It's just inside the community. We have to quit creating a space for the community and allow the community to create their own space, and we together build and create the table together, not dictating, but flatlining what power looks like in a very therapeutic way that can produce us to wholeness. Healing is a journey that will take us to wholeness. Let's first start the healing, and then we'll get to the place of wholeness.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know what? We're out of time. This hour has gone so quickly, but it's been an important and rich and I think fulfilling hour. Our intent, as I said at the beginning, is to do this every week, every Monday.
Absolutely.
And those who are watching live on YouTube or watching on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to this channel. We do it. Actually, I do this every day. I do this 5 days a week. But Mondays every week is going to be talking about neighborhoods and communities and the political challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. And if you're watching on Facebook, start a watch party. But for the candidates who are there, show up again as often as you can and bring your supporters, because we want to create what I call robust conversation. I think that we have to take ownership of our political space, and this is one of the tools I think that will enable you. I remind people that one of the things we did when we started this program was called the Insight KMOJ Public Policy Forum up at Lucille's Kitchen. Lucille's Kitchen was a restaurant where Your Rock is now on Plymouth Avenue. And we invited Natalie Johnson Lee to show up, and she showed up every week. And her showing up meant her voice was heard, and it meant her picture was in the paper every other week. So our intent is to replicate, to do the same, because your voices are really important. And I believe as an editor and as a publisher, we need to hear you and we need to see you. And even if there are 3 people or 4 running for 5th Ward or 9th Ward or 10th Ward, that's a good thing. This is not something that anybody can say, I have a right to, I own, and nobody else should run. Absolutely not. This is about a number of us putting our best ideas forward, competing in a spirit of community, in a spirit of bringing illumination, arguing with the idea of simply sharpening our point of view, our analyses, and highlighting the differences with the intent of ensuring that consumers have the information, that residents, that voters have the information they need to make discerning decisions. So I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to invite you back every Monday. I want you to invite your friends and your supporters to show up and ask you questions or ask your opponents questions. We'll have an ability to monitor the feed, the conversation on YouTube, and monitor the the conversation on Facebook as well. But let's grow this conversation about engagement, about possibility. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you. Let me do this one last thing. Let me go around the corner, around the table one more time, and let you say who you are and how people can reach you and follow you. I'm going to start with Victor. Victor, 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Thank you. There was an awesome opportunity to share. For those that want to know more about what I believe and what I want to do for the North Side, they can check out my website at www.victor, the number 5, citycouncil.com. You can also check out my Facebook page at Victor for City Council as well. So thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Latricia, thank you so much for being here. You take 30 seconds, please.
Thank you again for having me, Mr. McFarlane. Those who want to find me can find me at Latricia, LATRISHA, the word 4, FOR, Ward, the number 4. So the word forward and the number 4, Latricia for ward4.com.
Thank you. Tekken.
Yes, so I'm still waiting on some new branding from Atlanta and some art.
Name for me again.
Yes. So again, I'm Tekken Zaya Aida. I'll be running in the 7th Ward. My website, Tekken Ward 7, will be up momentarily. Like I said, I'm waiting for some branding out of ATL and some art that's coming. And so we'll be launching that soon, but I'm very active on all platforms of social media.
Alicia, your turn.
Yeah, Alicia Gibson, and running in Ward 10. You can find more about my campaign, and you can sign up for emails. I don't send them out too often. I know we all get too many, but whenever things like this, I will let people know they're coming. So I'm at votealiciagibson.com, and that's ALICIA Gibson, GIBSON. So votealiciagibson.com. And all the links for all the social media are right there at the top of that website.
Great. Now, I don't know if Carmen is still here. Carmen means you're still on board. She may have had to leave already.
She was great, though.
Yeah, great conversation. Diana, comments from you? Last thoughts, Diana?
I wish all you guys the best. And like Al said, we need to continue this conversation.
Great. Let me introduce all of you to Brenda Lyle Gray. She's a writer, reporter with Insight News, and she'll be following up with you. It would be awesome if each of you would send a selfie or your campaign photograph to me at Insight News, McFarlanemedia@gmail.com, because we're going to write stories about this conversation, and you can take a picture of you like where you are right now as part of the conversation, and we'll use that as part of our presentation of your platform, your candidacy. So listen, thank you, everybody. Brenda, thank you for being here. We'll see you all next time. Take care. I'm Al McFarlane. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
As morning draws near, I rise and say my prayer. Little piece of bread to my mouth, little tea to wash it out. It's my daily tribulation, even though I'm a working man. I work so hard to make ends meet, soldier, with one suit and one shoe to my feet. Days are getting so hard, yeah, but I got to keep on pushing on this 9 to 5, working to stay alive. To 5, working till sun goes down. As the sun sets in the west, I pack my things and head on home, thinking try these streets alone. It's my daily tribulation. Oh, just searching for liberation. Yeah. Got to step out of Babylon. Take a step to Mount Zion. Days are getting so hard, yeah. But I got to keep on pushing on. And it's 9 to 5, working to stay alive. Oh, and it's 9 to 5, yeah. Working till sun goes down, sun goes down. Days are getting so hard, yeah. But I got to keep on pushing on. And it's 9 to 5, working to stay alive. Oh, and it's 9 to 5, working till the sun goes down, sun goes down, sun goes. And it's 9 to 5, yeah, working to stay alive. Oh, and it's 9 to 5, yeah, working till the sun goes down. Oh, Lord.